All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. How's everybody been? How's things going? Make sure you like, listen, and subscribe. Well, you're already listening, so just make sure you like and subscribe. Put that in there. But today's topic, we're going to talk about parenting and the generational gaps in parenting. So, starting off, obviously, if you look at parenting from back in the day as opposed to now, you can see a big difference in how the way things are done and how things are perceived, from mental health awareness piece to dealing with bullying to just dealing with life in general and taking care of responsibilities and accountability for the things you need to do as a parent. So, if you look at the difference between the 80s and now, one of the big things from studies show is that back in the 80s, there wasn't a big focus on the mental health portion. And in today's world, we all know mental health is tied into every aspect and everything that we do. So, when it comes to dealing with mental health from a parenting standpoint, I think it goes tenfold, and it's a little bit of a mix of both. Back in the 80s, there wasn't may not have been a mainstream focus on it, but it doesn't mean people didn't deal with things and people didn't find resources to deal with the stuff they were dealing with when it came to the stresses in life. So most folks back in that time and even now, obviously people leaned on their faith heavily, right? They would go to the church, lean on folks that, you know, gave them spiritual guidance, which is what helped them get through situations that as they came up. But then also, from a traditional standpoint, people leaned on the elders in their family, right? The folks that have been around, have been through things, experienced stuff, and they went to those people for guidance to deal with the situations that they were dealing with. So if you're looking at that and then you're looking at how weights and stuff is now, right? Obviously now everybody's like, going to see a counselor, you're going to see a psychiatrist or whatever the situation may be to deal with, to help navigate the stuff that they're dealing with in the situations they got going on. So I say in just with that, like, people need to be mindful of how things are viewed and then how you're dealing with the situation. So being a parent, life takes a shift. It just does. Your focus is not no longer it's no longer on yourself. It's on the person that you now are responsible for and the person you have to take care of. And your job is to guide them the best way you know how, because there's no book on parenting. And when I say no book on parenting, yeah, they're got, people write self help books and things of that nature. But when it comes down to nitty gritty of parenting and parenting the correct way, there is no clear way. Every child is different. Every child develops different, and every situation is built different, and how you handle situations is different. So you have to be mindful of that as you're going through. But your center focus should be, it's no longer about you. It's now about the child. And I think my focus for talking about this is because you see it all the time. Everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, even when you're looking on social media, stuff like that. You see people like back in the day when you had a child, everybody's focus, like, your focus was, it was either planned, right? People got to the point where they were ready to start a family or whatever. If it was a situation where it wasn't planned and then it happened, the good ones, and I say the good ones because it's the people that actually stepped up and took care of responsibility. The focus was, okay, how do I provide for this child? How do I take care of this child? And that's not saying back then, like, because now you have a lot of single moms, right? And even back then, you had single moms that came up. But what did they do? They did what they had to do to take care of responsibilities, whether it was working 3 jobs, working 2 jobs, whatever, stuff like that. And when you see it like nowadays, it's like, well, what's going on with the culture? Why are the children lacking this? Why are the children lacking that? And people are like, well, the parents got to work 2 or 3 jobs. They did, you know, people did that back in the 80s, was working 2 jobs. And kids were still able to sustain and do the stuff that they needed to do. And I think when it comes to that, when you look at that breakdown, it's about structure. It's about setting that expectation about discipline, setting that level of respect and accountability for the kids. And then also that's what the parents were instilling in them during that time frame. But also during that time frame, you had people that were having kids when they were a little bit more, when they were a little older, as opposed to now where you got people popping out kids 15, 16 years old. Like, they made a whole freaking series about it. It's like 16 and Pregnant, I think it was called, on MTV, or some craziness. So they made a whole series about it, and it's like it became the norm. And it's like you got kids having kids, like, you not even developed yourself. And now you're bringing a child in the world where you got to take on responsibilities, you got to do the things you need to do, and you got to pretty much raise another human being. Excuse me. And how are you supposed to do that If you can, you yourself, you still a kid yourself. You don't know your butt from your elbow. Now you're talking about bringing the kid into the world, and then you run into this like this constant cycle of people doing of people having kids, young people having kids young, or you got people, you 30 something years old and you a grandma. Like what? Really? And then that kid ended up having a kid young. Now you 40 something years old and you a great grandma. As opposed to back in the day, people with grandma days in 50s, you know, 60s when start pushing great grandma status, 70s, stuff like that. Now it's like the whole thing is shifted. But because you have this notion of people having kids, and even with that, the whole justice of people having kids are not ready to have kids. And if you're not ready to have a kid, hey, look, man, I don't believe in the abortion thing. I just don't. Like, if you lay down and have a kid, that is a person, a human being that people are killing and taking off. That's a whole nother political debate and all that stuff, which we won't get into. But personally, in my personal opinion, if you end up having a kid with somebody or you make a baby with somebody, you need to step up and take care of responsibility. It's just that simple. Sorry, unless it's something medical that is going to really harm the mother or whatever stuff like that. Hey, look, then you got to look at some different options. But people just getting pregnant and they be like, "Oh, I'm going to get an abortion." I'm going to get an abortion. That's not cool. Just saying. People might disagree. That's fine. But I'm just saying it's not cool. Like you need to step up and take your responsibilities. And a side note for that, if you got dudes, anybody that's listening to this, man, if you got dudes that's out there, if you got some guys listening to this, bro, and you done got some chicks pregnant or whatever, and you're not taking care of responsibility, I need you to step up and do what you need to do. Both parents are important. Both parents play a role in the development of a child. A mom has their piece, 9 times out of 10, she's the nurturing portion and giving that kind love. And then as a father, you set the expectation and set the standard. If you got a son, you set an expectation of what a man is supposed to be and how a man is supposed to act. If you have a daughter, you'll set an expectation for how a man is supposed to treat her and what she should expect from a guy. Like that's kind of how stuff plays out when you're looking at it. And you got a lot of punk dudes out here, man, that's just getting chicks pregnant and dipping off and running. And if that's what you're doing, man, you need to get yourself together. Somebody need to grab you and get you to get your stuff together. As a father, like it's just greatest gift in the world, greatest thing I have going on. I would say the greatest thing about me is being a dad. Sorry. That's just the way I see it. There's no greater responsibility. You now have the charge to raise a human, teach them the right ways. Obviously, you're going to stumble because we're not perfect. You're going to show them some wrong things, but your whole purpose is to guide them through life and make sure that they have the thing they're supposed to have and see what they're supposed to see as far as what the right and wrong is and how to go through and live life. And like I said, we're all human, so we're gonna make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect with it, but take that charge and take that responsibility and step up and take care of your stuff like you're supposed to. Be a man about your stuff. Don't be on some punk stuff. Now, you start looking at these generational gaps, how folks are raised, the structure, the respect, the accountability, especially respect is a big thing. I see people talking all kinds of crazy to elders, and it trips me out because growing up, you wouldn't even crack your lip at it. You wouldn't crack your lip at anybody that was a senior to you, aunt, uncle, grandparent, or just an elder on the street in the neighborhood. Now, what happened to it? Where's the respect? And then, like I said, all of that stuff plays into a role, man. It all plays into that same pot of people missing out and not having that structure to be able to be a good person, or in the sense having those key qualities to be a good parent. And everybody, and like I said, parenting is not an easy thing. There's no manual to it. There's no quick book to be like, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. There got self-help books and stuff like that that's been put out there that's cool. But when you look at it and get down to the nitty-gritty of it, it's not the same. The structure is not the same. Even the breakdown is not. Every situation is different. Kids are going to respond differently because they have their own little personalities. They're their own little human, right? So there are going to be tendencies and stuff there that you can see, but at the same time, like all kids are not the same. So you got to manage and deal with them accordingly as stuff comes about and how stuff rolls. But let's look at a piece from parenting. We talk about dealing with bullies. Nowadays, it's like you got cyberbullying. I mean, people sitting behind a computer talking stuff to you. And kids like, I'm being cyberbullied. These people are saying this to me online. Hey man, F that. F that. Turn it off. Somebody saying something, click, turn it off. Easy to. Back in the day, you get bullied. They was in your face, following you, cackling you, doing all kinds of stuff to you, whatever. And then the guy, if they got live with it and they put their hands on you, now they done touched you, they done touched you up a little bit. Now might have got busted up, busted lip or whatever. You go home crying. What's the first thing your parents said to you back in the day? What happened? Such and such is picking on me, this and third. And what they tell you, you either need to get out there and kick they behind, or you come back in here, I'm gonna kick yours. People may say that's wrong, but it worked. You built toughness. You went out there and faced the fears that you had when it came to dealing with a bully. You ain't just let people just run up on you, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff and just letting them say whatever they want to say to you and all that kind of stuff. You handled what you had to handle. You problem solved. They did studies and they said that back in the day, the parenting style was parents weren't as hands on. I disagree with that because I've seen a lot of folks, especially because family members that were very hands on with their kids in raising their child. But the same lessons were taught and the same structure was put in there. There was discipline. There was a healthy level of respect. There was a healthy level of fear when it came to dealing with your parents. That if you did something crazy or jacked up, they was coming for you. Good old belt. The generation before that, you had the switches, which is just pure psychological torture, just messed up. But you had discipline. You had a structure. You knew if you did something wrong, there was going to be a consequence to it. It wasn't this, you know, everybody's a winner. You got wins and losses. Everybody gets a trophy. All that kind of stuff. Like that wasn't the society. That wasn't the way stuff was done back then. It was kind of hard. It's kind of rough. Right? And I say hard and rough, like not like you in some crazy poverty situation, stuff like that. Some people were, but rough in the sense of like it built toughness, it built resilience, but it built a different kind of resilience to where people say, well, back then people didn't talk about their stuff, so they just suffered in silence. That's not always the case. Yeah, you had some people that did, but people when they were dealing with stuff, they pushed through. And when they needed to have a moment, they had their moment with whatever situation they was. Now, some people went to, whether it was smoking, cigarettes, or drinking, or whatever stuff like that. And I get it; that might not be the best coping mechanism for people to use from a health standpoint. But people did what they had to do to make sure that they got by. Now, as long as you was doing crazy stuff, because some people ended up on drugs because of it and all that kind of stuff too, which is there. But from a general standpoint of building a resilience and toughness, like people push through. People and you girls end up having women end up having kids with people that were deadbeats. Punks ran out on the family and just left them high and dry. Couldn't find them, didn't pay, give no money and support the kid, and none of that stuff. So what did they do? They they dealt with it, right? They pushed through. Mom might have had to work two jobs. Might have been going to school and taking the kid to night school with them because there wasn't this online school stuff like that. They physically had to go to school. But the focus and responsibility was taking care of their child. That was their sole focus, and that's what they was focused on doing. And that's what they did. Without hesitation, without anything crazy, they bust that they put their feet in the dirt and grinded to get to where they needed to get to make sure that they could take care of their kids. As opposed to you see the generation now, and also back then you had a village. Now the difference between then and now is you had the village, but it wasn't parents back then or folks back then didn't look to lean and I'm talking in general, but you got the mixes in there. But for the most part, people didn't look to say they expected their family to do stuff. They took care of their responsibility. Now the family being around and able to help was a benefit, but it wasn't something where it was an expectation to where like you have a kid and now you expecting everybody else to raise your kid. You have a kid and instead of focusing on responsibilities, you focus on other stuff. You still worried about self. You still trying to spoil yourself, trying to make sure yourself look good doing all this other extra stuff instead of taking care of your kid. All that stuff goes out the window. I'm a car nut. I love cars, like messing with cars, like modifying, building, whatever stuff like that. Man, since I had my daughter, I can tell you it's been a slow process on the little cars that I've had recently that I tried to tinker with. Why? Because my sole focus is making sure she has what she needs. All my stuff going to back burner. Everything's on pause. Now, when you can squeeze out a little bit here and there, like, all right, cool, Mike, I might be able to pull this out. Cool. But my goal, you have to make sure that that doesn't affect your child. Your child still gets what they need, still has what is required of them. They have all the fun stuff if they, if you want to spoil your child a little bit and you got the means to do it, all that. But you have to the focus has to be on the kid. And it's like if you look at the way stuff is trending, the way stuff is going now, that doesn't seem to be the case for everybody. And it's sad because the ones that are suffering this is the kids. And then you end up in a situation where you start people don't understand how good and nice it is to have family around to be able to assist you when you need it. And when I say assist, I mean people having that assistance. Like you have people running around now that's just like they have kids and they pawn their kids off on everybody else. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, parents. And that's not your parent. That's not the parent. That's not everybody else's responsibility. That's your responsibility. You decided to lay down and have a kid. That's your responsibility. That's literally now your sole purpose in life is to take care of your child. At least it should be. But for some people, they don't think that way. People have kids, and I talked about it when I was talking about a coach, when I was talking about different from a coach's standpoint. People have kids now, and people will be like, man, I need to take a trip. Kid driving me crazy. I'm out. Group of people, all of them got kids. They like, yo, leave the kid with the grandparents, bro. We out. We hitting the road. And it's like, why is it your parents' responsibility to take care of your child? Why? Somebody make it make sense. Like, you had that child. If you still wanted to party and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's not saying that you can't do that when you have a kid. You can, within reason and moderation, but your sole focus should be your kid should be first. Heck, freaking football comes up. I'm like, man, I want to catch up with the fellas. Go watch a football game. But if my daughter is like, Dad, I want you to stay and hang out with me, whatever the situation is, guess what I'm doing? Hey, fellas, look, I might be a little late getting there. I'll catch up with you. Because she's a priority. She comes first. Make sure she cool, good, situated before you peel out. As opposed to people saying the kid like, hey, Dad, I want you to stay. Or Mom, I want you to stay. And they're like, you're going to be with your grandma, blah, 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 blah. And they gone. Kids sitting there like, dang, parents don't even care. All of that stuff has an effect. All that stuff has an impact. People might not see it now, and you might not think the kids being affected by it, but they are. Because that's the way things is. That's the way things roll. There's a cause and effect to everything that happens. Everything that happens. And when it comes to parenting, it's like, where in the world, like, what happened? What happened to people taking pride in being a parent? Enjoying it, loving it, sacrificing everything for it. Now it's like people just like, yeah, I got a kid. Okay, cool. Oh, you go stay over here. We go stay over here. Especially guys, like dudes do that. I've come across dudes. They got 5 kids, 4 baby mamas. Like it's freaking nuts. And I'm like, bro, like, and then some of these dudes don't even deal. Like they got kids don't even deal with them. Kids don't know who they is. If the kid was walking down the street when they got older and saw their pops, they wouldn't know who their dad is. That's sad. But that's on the dudes. But then people will say, well, it's because they was raised a certain way. True, could be the case. But I know people that was raised right. Correct. Both parents at the crib. Giving them sound structure and all that stuff. Dude still turned into a deadbeat. So you can't always necessarily blame previous parenting or their parenting that they received because they might have had everything given to them. It's about mindset. It's about what's in here. What drives you? What pushes you? What motivates you? If you have a child, accountability should be at the top of your list. Responsibility should be at the top of your list. Everything about you should be on the back burner within reason. Because obviously, if you need to go to school or do some stuff to advance yourself to be able to take care of your kid, obviously, you got to put that at the forefront. But your kid shouldn't be sacrificed in that scope. You might need to modify some things, but your focus should always be taking care of your kid. And if you have help to take care of your kid or the family, friends, or whatever, don't abuse it. It's there. It's a great resource to have. Trust me, it's a great resource to have. Coming from somebody that don't have it. And that's only based off of geographic location to why I don't have it. But even if I did have it, it will be used sparingly. It's not something that you just like, all right, cool, I just want to drop my kid off. Or if you're going to make a decision, and I get it, people make decisions from work standpoint, right? But my thing is, people drop their kid off, skip work. Now, if you drop your kid off with a family member, something like that, because you got to go to work, you're trying to provide and make money, take care of your kid. Most people gonna be like, "Oh, cool, we got your back, got you covered." But if you drop your kid off and you going to party, people gonna look at you funny because you pawning off your kid to do what? Go have fun. You can't have fun with your kid. You can. Like I said, there's something wrong with going out, but it's like habitual stuff when it's going on more than the norm. You got a problem. You might want to take a step back, look in the mirror, take a peek, re-examine some things. Because all this stuff, if you look at it from a parenting standpoint, there's like I said, there's no right way to do parenting, technically. But there are some things in there where you're like, you should kind of focus on this. Make sure you're there for your child. Make sure your child got what they need. Sacrificing. And I think sacrifice when it comes to parent is probably like the biggest thing. Being a parent requires sacrifice. Ain't no ifs, ands, buts about it. No matter how you spin it, shake it, flip it, toss it, throw it around, being a parent is sacrifice. You sacrifice your time, energy to make sure your kid has what they need. I talk about all the time. When people complain about doing stuff for their kid or like I gotta work and do X, Y, and Z, I have no sympathy for folks that say that. And the only reason I have no sympathy is because I've been through it and I've done it. I was out of work for 6 months and my child did not know the difference. Why? She still had everything she needed. Everything she needed to have was paid for like it was supposed to be. And she still was able to go out and have her fun and do the stuff that she needed to do because I made sure that she was able to do that. And why did I make sure she was able to do that? Because that's my job. If I'm struggling or something's going on, she should never know the difference. And the reason she should never do this is because she's a child. That's not a burden that should be put on her. And it's the truth. I've seen it happen for folks where their parents are going through a situation and they parents dump all that stuff on the kid. So in those situations, yeah, it's important to focus on mental health of a child, make sure a child's good, make sure they're right mentally. Because they're getting put in situations like that they should never be in. And if you got stuff like that going on, obviously that changes that dynamic and that changes how stuff is being portrayed and how stuff is playing out. But people got to look at that. You got to understand, like it blows my mind, and maybe it's just because maybe it's just me and how I think and process stuff. Because I look at when my kid was born, I didn't see her for 6 months. COVID happened. She was in Texas. I was stationed in California. Had to go back to California. Didn't see her for 6 months. So, and shout out to all my folks in the military that deal with deployments and stuff like that, not being able to see their kids. Because trust, we all. And I got buddies and stuff that went through that. I know how janky that can get. But even then, right? That's a sacrifice you're making because you're trying to take care of your child. Difference of that being a sacrifice as opposed to somebody just want to take a trip because they want to take a trip. And you see it all the time. People post on social media, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And you'll come across people in your friends. Scroll through your friends and see people that got your friends that got kids. How often do they post about their kids? And that could be different reasons. That's not a shot, but it could be different reasons. Some people don't post about their kids because of privacy. They don't want their kids. A lot of creepers on the internet. They don't want to post your kid because creepers out there doing weird stuff. But some people don't post it because they're all about self. And that's not a full characteristic of everybody, but it's like you just see it. The way stuff was perpetuated is the way stuff was put out there, the way stuff was portrayed. And the portrayal could be wrong. So obviously, like I talked about when the previous podcast, about posting with a purpose. Now you're gonna post because you feel you want to post something or whatever, but post with a purpose. And to each his own. I can't tell people what to do or how to do it. I'm just giving my 2 cents from my perspective. And my perspective can mean doodle squat to a lot of people, and that's fine. Like I said, this is me just getting stuff, getting the flows off my chest. But I've seen it. Like I said, it's just one of those things, man. Especially like I said, just being accountable and taking care of your kids. Like I keep going back to the accountability and responsibility piece because it's one of the pieces I think I believe should be the central focus. Obviously, you if you root it in your faith and your spirituality, that's going to be a big piece and how you take care of your kid because you realize your kid is a gift from God. And if you're a believer, you get a gift from God, man. You got to nurture it, pour into it, grow it. That's a kid. You should pour everything you have, everything you know into that child to make sure that child has the best life they can have and can succeed in anything that they do, or anything that they want to do. But in order for you to be able to do that as a parent, you have to do the things you need to do to make sure yourself is straight, make sure you got your stuff you need to do, make sure you take care of responsibilities, and make sure you're providing and giving that child the best environment. If you put your child in an environment where you partying all the time on the weekend, getting drunk, getting crap face, and your kid is there, that's not probably not a smart move. It's crazy to me when I look at back in the day, right? And I say back in the day because 80s baby. But like people talking about calling child services. Right. I remember I used to see friends do it. I might have had a cousin too that did it too. When they was like, I'm gonna call diapers. And parent like, call them. Let them come get you. Find somebody else to feed, clothe you, and do all this other stuff. But then you fast forward that what you a lot of people didn't think about back then was look at the folks that were in the system back then and how crappy that was for them. And that wasn't like, and it's a hit or miss. It's a hit or miss experience. You have people that were pulled into foster homes and stuff like that. That it worked out for them in the long run. You got some people that were pulled into it and it didn't work out for them. It was in a real bad situation. A lot of jacked up stuff happened to them. But once again, it goes back to people being responsible, taking their responsibilities. You having a kid, I want to show up, take care of your kid. I'm just saying. For my folks out there, and I'll close this out with saying this. If you are a parent and you become a parent, for all the folks out there that are parents and doing something you need to do, shout out to you guys. Kudos to you. For the ones that's not, it's time for you folks to get yourself together. Your focus should be taking care of your child in whichever way, shape, or form that is. But actually taking care of your child, actually taking responsibility for your child, actually doing the things that you need to do to make sure your child has what they need and is given a level of love, care, and support that they need to be able to develop and grow into a productive person. But if you screwed up and you're not getting yourself together, not doing things you need to do, then you need to really take a deep dive in the mirror and get yourself together. It's not about you. And that's the biggest thing. If you've seen the parents from the 80s and some in the 90s, even with the transition from people being helicopter parents and being more focused on parents and different level of parenting, like even if you look at the different types of parenting, at the end of the day, the folks that are the whole fact is they are parenting. No matter what kind of parents you're doing, with a helicopter, loose, or whatever, they're still parenting. They're still providing some kind of guidance, some kind of structure to their child, in whatever way, shape, or form that is. But they're still there doing it. They're not worrying about stuff. They're not worrying about taking trips. They're not worrying about going to party. They're not worrying about doing anything other than taking care of their kid because that should be your sole focus. And if that's not your sole focus and you have a kid or you thinking about having a kid or whatever, you need to really, really sit down and look at yourself and figure out what in the world are you doing? Because that child didn't ask for this. But once that child shows up, you are the parent. That is a piece of you. That is your DNA. That is a part of you forever. So I say in closing, if you're going to be a parent and you're parenting and you need to parent, get yourself together. It is not anybody else's responsibility to take care of your child but you. And if you have the resources that are there to help you out and to support you, don't abuse them. Be thankful. Give them kudos. Tell them thank you. Because there are a lot of people out there that don't have that and wish they could. So stay positive. For my folks that's listening, make sure you like and subscribe, share it. If you have some thoughts and opinions, send them, put them in the comments. Let's talk about it. But I will catch you folks on the next go around. I appreciate you guys for listening.